So, if you've watched golf in the last 20 years, you know of Johnny Miller. He's a controversial commentator that always has an interesting take on players in the PGA Tour, and he gets assigned to major tournaments, the majors, and he definitely is polarizing among who you ask. And just in my own experience, people feel that he's abrasive and but people really forget how awesome he was in his early 20s, and as a youth he did win junior amateur, and he played out of San Francisco and went on to win 1973 US Open in Oakmont, and just had an amazing swing that just embraced his youth of being someone in his early 20s that had the athleticism to just give the ball a rip.
A couple of records. 18th tee, the 72nd hole, leading by a stroke. What a freewheeling swing.
I've never seen him hit through the ball as well as he has today. Of course, the score speaks for itself. But as I was saying earlier, Chris, the greens are absolutely perfect. They're holding well in the best test of grass on the green I've ever seen.
26-year-old Johnny Miller, about ready to hit his second shot with an iron before the 18th green.
145 yards away, Chris. He had a tremendous drive. And it's coming in straight.
So when you're shooting, 62s and 63s in major championships, obviously you're doing something right. And generally speaking, his iron play is some of the strongest of all time. It was really interesting to hear that during commentary, he said that he could actually hear how crisp a ball was hit and whether it had like spin or draw, or he would actually be the best that I've really ever seen at being able to surmise whether it was short or long or thin or fat. And this just goes back to the perfection that he put into his iron play, and just to completely attack the iron when he came down on it. And it's just so satisfying to see him.
I've never seen him hit through the ball as well as he has.
Yeah, it just hit through the ball just like really none of his contemporaries. And I think especially that was why his US Open performances for courses that required tight fairways, like the ones that he grew up on in San Francisco, with long rough, really benefited him in the long run. And I think one of his best calls was for arguably the greatest golfing performance of all time, the US Open at Pebble Beach, where Tiger Woods dominated by 15. And here's an interesting tidbit. What Johnny will do before a tournament is he'll go around, and I've actually seen him do this, and not only talk to the players, but talk to kind of everyone around the players, the coaches, the caddies, and just get a sense of what's going on, who's going to play well, and take as many tidbits as he can for the commentary that he can offer to the viewer.
We were on the 16th tee, and all of a sudden I felt this tug on my shirt, and I turned around, and it was Johnny Miller. And Johnny's like, "Mark, how's the kid hit that?" I said, "Johnny, that kid right there?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "That kid's the greatest player I've ever seen. He's the greatest player in the world." He never missed a shot out there in the practice rounds. It was unbelievable. And I said to Johnny, I said, to be fair, if he doesn't win this week, I'll be absolutely shocked.
Let's go to 15. I really do believe, I get this hunch that Tiger's going to break every U.S. Open record this week and win by maybe a big margin.
Wow, Johnny, that's quite a statement.
Right when he said it, I looked over at him as if to say, "Are you crazy going there right now? We're in the first round."
So Johnny, he doesn't have to put himself out there to make these calls, but he does. I think he knows a good iron player when he sees one in Tiger, because he is a phenomenal iron player. And Tiger, with his ability to draw and fade, to play that stinger, which very few people have in the bag, and to manufacture the types of shots that he was able to just prior to the US Open. And in that whole era when he's 24 and just absolutely dominating, I think Johnny made a safe bet, reasonably speaking, to see that Tiger was going to do well. But yeah, for him to echo what Marco Mira was saying, who at that time, was winning major championships himself, 1998 at the Masters, was definitely impressive. So he earned his chops through this tournament alone to be a commentator who was able to understand the importance of the moment and identify when someone's doing really well. And he made one of the greatest calls to say that, yeah, Tiger was going to break some records this week. And boy, did he ever, with that 15-shot win. Yeah, to find anything that might even come close, you'd have to look to Michael Phelps or other sports, because you just don't win tournaments by 15 shots. And then, so you have a safe Johnny Miller sometimes, but you also have a Johnny Miller that is the abrasive one. And as he's, is an apologist to really himself, he'll say, I have, 4 or 5 hours on TV where I have to entertain people and at the same time not step on toes of the same people that I'm going to be talking with and I'm trying to keep friends with. So to be a media participant and leader, really, and then be friendly with all these guys is really tough. So this particularly was a memorable one, talking about the unconditional or untraditional swing that was on display here.
Last time you see that swing is in a Pro-Am with a guy with about 15 handicap. It just over the top, cups it at the bottom and hits it unbelievably good. It doesn't look, if Ben Hogan saw that, he'd puke.
So, to add that type of humor, maybe he's not the best at humor, but I think what you come to understand with Johnny is that as a announcer, he's not talking down to you, kind of like many associate Brandel Chambly on Golf Channel doing, and specifically Brooks Koepka, tweeting out videos or images of Brandel Chambly looking kind of ridiculous. And then, I think it comes to a boiling point when it comes to commentators as a whole. You saw that video of David Duval and Brandel Chambly getting into it. David Duval was #1 player in the world, friend of Tiger, played Ryder Cups, was a winner of the British Open. And here's Brandel Chambly like talking down to him. So I never saw Johnny talking down to people. And Johnny, at least in my estimation, was a commentator that you wanted to have a beer with. You wanted to get an honest assessment of how things are going with him, like what's this person like. And I think the overwhelming consensus of Johnny Miller has yet to be told, besides being a phenomenal iron player and, of course, a major champion. But in the end, I feel like Johnny was an entertaining commentator who always brought an incisive eye to the golf landscape, and I was always excited to listen to. So I would definitely like to hear more from Johnny, even though he did retire. But in terms of the Mount Rushmore of golf commentators, you got to give it up to Johnny Miller.